Testing audio 1 2 3. Testing audio. Okay, audio's good. Okay, being most of the people watching this are likely going to be watching this as a normal video, I'm just going to get right into this. So, in this little stream video, I want to go over my EPG Sci CCA boat, which I covered a little bit in the previous stream, and then I want to go over a scatter volley build on the Andorian escorts that I've been messing around with. It's not a very serious performance build, but it's something I've been having a little bit of fun with. So I'm going to start with the CCA Sci boat that is focused on EPG and some control. So the E-Dolg is considered one of the best, if not the best, Sci ship for exotic stuff due to the overall layout it has and just the hybrid seats, basically. It has a commander temporal seat / science, which means you can put on some very good temporal abilities, and you get access to the temporal configuration things that give some nice buffs, like the support one, which gives plus 20% exotic damage. And it has an intel seat, so you can do OSS for that nice power buff. Hello, Hugo. And everyone else that's just joined. Then that's the really nice things about this ship, and it does have a pet. The Sphere Builder Frigate pet does pretty well. It's got Rapid Decay on it, which is a debuff. It only applies to one target, but if it hits what you're shooting at, it's pretty nice. And they have Fire at Will and Torp Spread, so they're decent pets, not the highest DPS ever, but they're good. So on a standard exotic boat, you're going to see the chronometric set as one of the highlights. So on this build, I have the two beams on, the Beam Array and the Omni Beam. These are from the Time and Tide mission, if I'm remembering right. And then the third piece is this chronometric capacitor console. The fourth piece is the Krenim torpedo launcher, which you get off the Krenim science vessel, the anniversary ship from a few years back, but it is not needed unless you want to do the 4-piece, which just extends this 3-piece buff up to 30 seconds. And we don't care about the proc thing, it does. But the nice thing about this little 3-piece clicky between the two beams in this TAC console are that they give exotic damage and energy weapon damage. The exotic damage being the big thing here. So you'll notice also this isn't the highest EPG. If you look over at the left, it's only 432. You can get higher on an exotic boat, but I am not spec'd into exotics really much at all on this character. This is my main, which is spec'd in a way that it lets me do high-end DPS stuff and some PvP and a few other things. I'm only losing 50 EPG there, but that's still something. It would help a nice little bit. Then I have the Thoron infused dual heavy cannon. You can also do the beam along with the neutronic, and the purpose for this is the 2-piece radiation damage buff. On an exotic boat, you are going to have a bit of radiation damage coming from various sources. Your secondary deflectors are the notable things, which, depending on which one you're using and what abilities you're using to trigger it, some people see 20 to 40k. I think I heard someone got 50k DPS in ISA or something, or HSE, just from their secondary deflector. Now, this boat here, this is specifically focused on CCA. You would need a few modifications, which I'm not going to go over today because I don't have the stuff to show for this character to show how it would apply in HSE or ISA, so This is just going to focus solely on the CCA side today. And with these Sci boats, you're not actually firing your energy weapons, you're not focusing on firing them, you're wanting to focus on your exotics and your torps. So if you look at my power levels down here, you'll see Ox is pretty high up there, and then there is some weapon power, but that's not the focus. You can do like a scatter volley setup with some of these if you want, but you're going to get a lot more out of running a torp with torp spread 3, or some torps with high yield 3, which I'll get to in a minute here. But this neutronic, being on the aft, it's not one that I'm actually firing. The only one I am actually firing on this specific setup is the gravimetric, because this is CCA focused. So in longer duration fights, you'd want to use something like the particle emission torpedo. Where is it? What we commonly refer to as the PEP. This is a crafted torpedo that does a lot of plasma damage, and you fire a torp spread of them at a group of grav-weld targets, and it does a lot. But in CCA, this gravimetric torp will do more, just because the grav rifts it has, and the short duration of the fight, it just tears things apart. Hello, Sarah. Then the 2-piece here, we've got this, the experimental proton weapon thingy. And that works with the grav torp to give us a photon projectile damage buff and some crit chance. So that's just a nice 2-piece to have on if you are using the gravimetric. And also, if you do want to go like with the high yield route, because with torp spread you want to use the PEP or the grav torp, but if you want to use high yield, you can just swap that out to the enhanced biomole, which is just, it's terrible to watch. It's just so deadly towards a group of targets. It's like a mini nuke. Deflectors, there's like 2 or 3 different options here now. The Solanae was the original option we had for EPG boats because it gave us 50 EPG. Or, yeah, 50. But now you have the Bajoran deflector, which can give 50, and then it can do 40 Control X and 30 Drain, I believe. So that's a really good one nowadays. Then there's one of the crafted deflectors that I've seen people toss around that has 60 EPG on it, so that one can get the most EPG, but I would go with the Solanae or Bajoran one in most builds because they're just easier to get. Secondary deflector, you can do a crafted one, which is what I'm doing here, so I can swap it between characters. You can do the Fleet Research Lab ones. Just make sure you re-engineer them into having as much EPG and Control X as possible, and they have SA plus damage. The SA plus damage will make it so that whatever target you mark your sensor analysis on, you'll do slightly more damage to that target. So I don't remember if it's its own category now. I think they changed it with Season 13. It used to basically be a final 20%, but I think now it's like Cat 2, so it's not as big as it used to be, but it's still substantial. Then for the Impulse, I'm running the temporal engines. You could do the competitive engines if you want more speed, if you're in a longer duration fight, but I'm just going with the temporal 2-piece here along with the shield, because the 2-piece is a buff to all of your dots, which on science boats you're going to have a lot of dots. So plus 25%, that on this build would be affecting the secondary deflector, notably. On any science boat that's focused on damage, you find a way to fit this temporal set on. The warp core, if I had the temporal deflector, I would run the 3-piece for CCA, but I've been lazy and have not went out and gotten that yet for this character. I already went over the aft weapons. So devices, The one that really matters is the crafted science one, the exotic particle flood battery. That's 20% Cat 2, which is quite significant. And the consoles is where it really starts to change up. A lot of people will tell you to just go out and focus solely on getting your EPG number as high as possible, but that's not what you want to do anymore. You want to take advantage of the consoles that give you plus bonus exotic damage. So that's the auxiliary ejection assembly here. This is off the Kelvin Constitution, so that's about 250 to 300 mil for feds. Much cheaper for non-feds, but that is a Cat 2 damage buff for exotics. Then you've got the constriction anchor. That's a cheap one. That's 23.7 Cat 2. This one here, I'm using this because this has a good dot on it, or good clicky. The exotic damage buff it has is just Cat 1. This is the console that comes with the Edolg, so it's not relevant to other ships. You're going to want to have the Delphic Terror on any exotic boat due to the Cat 2 damage it has and the clicky on it being so potent. Chronometric gives you a little bit of EPG, and then that's part of that 3-piece we talked about before. And then you've got the DPRM, which has a clicky on it that's plus 40% bonus all damage for up to 20 seconds, as long as you're above 80% HP. Now, the places where I am buffing up EPG is largely these science consoles. So I've got the exotic particle exciter with EPG on it. You'll find most EPG Sci boats run this because it's 75 EPG. And then I have 4 of these consoles from the research lab that give 37.5 EPG and 25 Control X when they're at Mark 14 Epic. But the other nice thing about these is the little proc they have on them. 25% chance for plus 6% bonus exotic damage for 30 seconds when using any exotic ability. Ability. I can't talk. Just getting over being sick, so it's been a fun week. So that's a potential of plus 30% Cat 2 for your exotics, which is pretty nice. So it's stacking up as much of this bonus exotic damage as possible and getting yourself a little bit of EPG where you can. I wouldn't really want to go much lower than 350, I would say, on most builds. If you're spec'd into it fully, you should be able to be around 500 and still have most of these consoles on. Because I'm losing the 50 just because I'm not spec'd fully into EPG in the skill tree. So, skill tree, this is the same one I've talked about before on my other builds, and it's posted on Reddit, so I'm just going to skim over that. Your primary specialization with any exotic boat is going to be temporal. It just has many things that do wonderful things. It's got a nice another dot damage buff on it. It's got a debuff for anything with dots on it, if I recall. Yep. You've got this temporal cross-wiring that gives you a little bit of firing cyclase, which doesn't matter here, but you've got the anomaly leash that does matter. So you've got your gravity well that'll follow your targets around, basically. So it's really, really nice. And you've, of course, got continuity, but that doesn't really matter as much anymore, being they nerfed that last year. And then strategist second. Did the divisionary tactics clickies pretty nice, and having all of the little buffs doesn't hurt. Now let's get into the traits. So, anchored, because you're going to be sitting still with these exotic boats a ton. I've been messing around with context is for kings. That'll give you damage, plus all damage or plus damage resistance, depending on if you're being shot at or not. I've got Romulan Opera Dog, well, operative on, but you could probably change that out for something else if you really wanted. A Good Day to Die, which as a tactical is just a must slot due to it letting you hit your go down fighting at any HP. Invasive control programming, so with my Gravwell or some of these other things, it'll trigger random subsystem disables. It's pretty nice against groups if you want to shut their shields off. Self-modulating fire for the shield pen. Particle Manipulator is a must slot on any exotic boat due to the crit chance and severity it gives, so that's plus 50 crit chance and plus 43.2% severity just from the exotic being where it's at for me. So 432. Now you imagine you get that up a bit higher and it gets to really stupid numbers. For PvE, I'm still finding that Temporal's been working best. With the improved Gravity Well trait, you have your Gravwells following you around enough that it works pretty well. From what I've been seeing so far, at least. Fleet Coordinator for the damage buff for being in a team. And being I am using Torp's superior projectile training. Hugo, I don't have the T6 Tal Shiar Destroyer on this character. And if I did, I wouldn't have anywhere to fit those abilities on this build. I am using the other Tal Shiar trait though. So I guess let's start with that one. I'm just messing with this one. I don't know if it's the best thing ever. In fact, this CCA I'm going to be doing after I finish talking about this build is the first one I'll have used this trait on. But it looks like it has a bit of potential, and if it doesn't, we'll swap out to something I'll get to. Something else here I'll talk about in a minute. So that Tal Shiar adapted... Is this the Battlecruiser trait? Yeah, the Battlecruiser. When you hit emergency power to auxiliary, which you're going to be running on most of these builds, it gives you some crit chance and severity for your exotic damage abilities. The issue is it's not constant uptime. It's only 20 seconds out of the 30. So that's a trait I'm not sure about yet. That is one that I might swap back out to something else. Improved Gravity Well. This is one of the traits off the new Andorian, Day-1, and whatever the Klingon versions are, pilot ships we just got. This trait is pretty much a must-have for a science boat that's using Gravity Well, because it's just extremely powerful. It is surprising that they put something like this in the game, all in one trait. Checkmate. This is from the Tactical Scimitar, I want to say. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. It gives you, and for Feds, it's the Tactical Odyssey. When you hit certain science abilities that are control abilities, you get a buff to projectile weapon damage and exotic damage. It's Cat 1, but it's still good. Then we have exotic modulation. I'm wanting to say that this is off the Kronos. Let me check. Which is one of these 31st century ships. Yep, the Kronos class Dreadnought cruiser. When you hit directed energy modulation or any temporal operative ability, it gives you a 20% Cat 2 exotic damage buff for 15 seconds. So that is very, very potent. Now the last one I've been messing around with is this Catastrophic Overload. And it's just for getting a little bit of damage to a group that is near your target when you hit jam targeting sensors. I don't think this is going to be the best trait ever, so I'm thinking I might replace it. And that is simulated power conduits. What I could swap them out to is, let's see here. Time to kill is an option. That's plus 30% all damage when you hit science bridge officer abilities. Plus 15 seconds, or 15 seconds per stack. What's the other here? Emitter synergy. That's 22.5 exotic damage potentially there. And that procs off of hitting tactical or intel bridge officer abilities. Same as time to kill though, it's only got a 15 second duration. But those are two other good traits. There's probably more, but I don't run these in builds enough. Then, if we go to space rep, precision, of course, for the crit chance. Advanced targeting systems for the severity. Get me some shield pen here with that. 5% Cat 2 exotic damage from the, this is an Iconian rep trait. Particle generator amplifier. And the last one's going to be the new car Ox offense for the damage buff. If you want to buff your torps up instead, you can get a little bit more out of the torpedo pre-fire sequence, because this is a 12.5% Cat 2 torpedo damage buff. So that's a really nice trait. And active rep is the same as always, so nothing we need to get into. Bridge officer ability wise, tactical, I don't have a tac team on. There's just not room on this build. So I have Chemo 1, Beta 1 for the debuff, and Torp Spread 3. Now, as I said before, if you want to do high yield and use the enhanced Biomole instead of the Grav for Pep Torps, you would just swap this out to a high yield and do that. Then before we get into science, let's go over this engineering/intel seat. So emergency powered auxiliary and OSS. This build has very little survivability. And yeah. An anomalous squid, I have no idea what to tell you there. This ensign science seat has the jam targeting sensors to trigger that catastrophic overload trait, and it's a control ability, so it'll also proc the checkmate trait for that damage buff. Tachyon beam is gonna trigger drain infection if I had it on, but I don't have it on this build. Destabilizing resonance beam is going to trigger my secondary deflector, and it's going to do a nice bit of damage, and it'll debuff things a bit. Subspace Vortex 3 does a nice chunk of damage to anything around it. And you want to ignore the teleport thing because that ends it. Yeah, I've seen some good things about technical overload there, Kaiser. I just haven't messed with the stuff. I honestly haven't been playing much this last month. I got a little bit burnt out on the game again, and busy in real life and stuff, so. And then the final seat here is this Commander Science/Temporal. So channel deconstruction, this builds up the entropy on your target. Rapid Decay is a debuff that removes entropy from your target, but if you want, you can also hit recursive before it to give a little bit more entropy to the target to make this have a little bit more of a debuff. But this recursive shearing 1 won't do that much. We'll look at the combat log after I do the CCA and see that it probably did like 10k or something, knowing this thing, so that'll be fun to see. That could be replaced with something else, like another temporal ability. Wish these things would automatically swap over to whatever they're seated in, so you're gonna have to go and do that. But I could run like a chronometric inversion field to do more dot damage, because this chronometric inversion field will do all damage to all targets within 5 kilometers. And that's a nice chunk of physicals. You know what, I'm gonna run that instead. It's gonna do more than the recursive. Now, there's certainly other options for things I could slot, but there's just not room on this build. You could swap out this tachyon beam if you're not running drain infection for... I don't have the thing on me. Structured analysis, is it? Yeah, structured analysis 1, so it's just a debuff to everything around the target. Oh, and that triggers the sec def. Okay, before I do this CCA, I'm going to swap that around. But before I do that, let's go over DOFs. So, the gravimetric scientist for the aftershock gravity wells, it's pretty standard. I have a projectile DOF on for the chance to recharge torps. The damage versus Tholians, being this is a CCA focused build. And then I have 3 technicians on to increase exotic, with a chance to increase exotic damage when I hit emergency power to auxiliary. It's not guaranteed, it's just a 10% chance. So I'm running 3 of them, and if they go, they'll give me a nice damage buff. One of them just, oh, none of them procced. Terrible. Okay. Grab that structured analysis quick and put it on the tray. Crystalline Catastrophe Advanced. It's the thing the Endeavor's currently for. Things don't want to go on the tray. I lost my channel deconstruction here. This tray is a complete mess. I'm just gonna go in and click things. Yeah, I'm gonna do what I can here because I haven't messed around with these exotic builds much, but someone asked to see the build, so I'm going with what I've got, and I've messed around with these CCA builds a little bit. I mean, I've got like the 4th record on the table, but no one's doing the CCA builds like they were last year. They're such a great way to farm dill and stuff because they're so cheap to set up. Yeah. Combat log is running, so let's see what happens. As soon as it pops. I'm not spec'd fully into EPG on this character, so I should be around 480 to 200, or 480 to 500, but I'm currently at 432. This is a character focused more on the energy weapon DPS side of things, so it's not perfect, Nathaniel. You don't need keybinds to play the game, but if you want to get to any like high level stuff, keybinds are mandatory. You just get to the point where there's so many things on your tray. Like this, like with these side boats, I would bind most of this stuff. I used to have a bind set up for it where I would just spam, I think it was the Y key or something, and it would trigger all of them, but I messed around with my keybinds sometime later that year and messed with things, so I don't have that key anymore. The thing is you don't want to go up too high because you want to build up as much of the bonus Cat 2 exotic damage buffs you can, which there's quite a few consoles that offer that now. What lag? Okay. So that run right there, I'll do the same thing I did with the last time I showed this, because for anyone that doesn't know, any of the high-end CCA records they're trimmed, I think would be the appropriate term. So I'm gonna pop open SCM. Just a moment. So I'm going in here and trimming out everything from the start until I start shooting. And everything from after the entity dies. There's someone in here literally named Kill. Man. This ruins my log editing immersion. So I want to find the kill line that has the entity on it. So if you recall, that run was... what was that? So just trimming that. Let's see. So I can still trim off the start. Jeez. Trim 2 seconds off the start. Let's go second by second to make sure it can still upload. $59, where are you? So just with that so far, just to show that log being trimmed down, we saw where it started and this is where it's at so far. For 572, so you see this dip here? There's nothing happening basically in these first 2 seconds still. You can see where I start to hit the entity. It's this big spike up. So these 2 seconds can probably be trimmed. This is how most of the CCA records are. It's why it's like you see some people take them seriously. It's like you just don't. Pretty much everything in the top... I don't know. Definitely the top 10, 20 are trimmed. Okay, it just accepted the next second off. Let's try another. Nope. Basically, with these logs, when you trim them down, people will go and they'll trim them down until they get this message. That's when you know you've taken a little bit too much off, and you have to step back. Which with this, if you're going second by second, there's nothing in between the seconds. You see, it just goes from 00 to 01. There's nothing at the that point, so nothing in a tenth of a second. So at that, yeah. So that was that up on the table. Let's see. Yeah, that there, fourth on the table, so I still have the fourth slot, just gained like 30 or 40k there. But you see the time, 12 seconds, okay? None of these runs were 12 seconds. Some of these probably weren't even 20. They were just trimmed down. That's why you can't really take these things serious, so remember that. This is 616k in 12 seconds after the log was trimmed. Nothing was replaced in the log. It was just the log was trimmed down to as far as it would go before it was denied by the parser. Compare that to what it was before. 28 seconds and 326k. So hopefully that explains why CCA records are like they are to people. Because log trimming is very, very much a thing here. Gotta squeeze them numbers out. Okay, let's go over to the Andorian scatter volley setup I've got now. We could, but there's been people that have legitimately done it in a second or two. I mean, if you remember, like Ryan, and then they went in with all the torp builds and stuff. Where is this FPS drop? Ugh. But the other thing, Zero, is there's just a lack of care. It's the other issues is that with CCA, it's not exactly. It's hard to define as like fake DPS. It's certainly trimmed and not completely legitimate of the run, but on the other hand, it's technically valid. Because you can get the same results by binding a /combat log 1 and /combat log 0 command to a button and starting it right as you start shooting and stopping it when you see the entity die. Yes, this is the new Andorian Escort. Let me fix my tray. I usually play on 21:9, but I've gotten complaints about that, so I just crop the screen down to normal aspect ratio for people. Yeah, I've got... This is more of a fun build. This is not a super serious build. I need to change some things on this. Like, I need to get the competitive shields, but I haven't really played the game that much lately, and I certainly haven't been on this character doing much other than leveling up this ship. So, once again, this is not a serious build. This is more of a fun build, but you can take some of the aspects from this. Like, someone asked me about a scatter volley build. And honestly, the difference between scatter volley, rapid fire, fall, you're just swapping your weapons around and a few abilities and traits. They're all pretty much the same build. Yeah, Zero, I play on one of those 34-inch ultra wides. Yeah, the two-piece Bajoran's pretty nice. But the 4 weapons prolonged phaser cannons. These things do less damage off the bat, but do more the longer you're in the fight. Then I've got the wing cannons, quad cannons, and the two-piece quantum phase. Because it's a phaser build and it's cannons, I'm doing the heavy turret with the multi-conduit, then the trilithium enhanced phaser turret. Now I don't have the two-piece on for this, but I just didn't want to give up more consoles, being I'm running all of the fun consoles here. Well, this monitor feels like a TV, Zero. 34-inch, and it's about a foot, 2 feet away from my face most of the time. It's not the deepest desk ever here, so can't really push it back much further. Colony deflector, pretty standard. Competitive engines, pretty standard also right now because of the speed buff. Spire core and the shields would be competitive, as I mentioned, if I weren't lazy. Devices, energy amplifier, experimental weapon. If I had the money, you know, I'd go out and buy the Senkethi shucked in for the Sheller, but I can't justify 200 million AC for an experimental weapon right now. That's too close, Zero. I'm running the 4-piece console set here from the ships and the Bajoran console, so the wing torp platforms, the gateway trap spawner, the domino console, the neurophasic disruption field. Then I've got the DPRM and the point defense bombardment warhead on. Then the wing cannon platforms from the T5 Andorians. I have re-engineered a lot of the things. It's just, you know, I'm trying to figure out, like, Crit X. I'm debating if I want to do that or swap it out for another damage, because Crit X there is actually pretty decent. So it's hard to say. And if I were doing a serious build, I wouldn't be running a Torp. I also don't have room for the quantum phase. The console on here, just, I'd have to drop something, and I like everything I've got on. And of course, 3 of the TAC consoles. Skill tree, I'm not gonna go over it. It's close to what SOB is running. Traits, standard what you would see on most builds with cannons. Withering Barrage, Mercy Weapon Cycle, Supercharged Weapons, Promise of Ferocity, Cold-Hearted. If you didn't get Cold-Hearted with the event, I feel seriously sorry for you. Zero, my MJ Bird is on a list. Didn't you know that? The Space Reps, this is the same as pretty much any other energy weapon build. The Active Rep, yep, pretty much same. Bridge Officer abilities, this is a fun build and stuff, so yeah. 2 Oxtabats, because I love my Oxtabats. Emergency-powered weapons, emergency-powered engines, hazard emitters, destabilizing resonance beam, Torp Spread 3, Chemo 2, TAC Team 1, Scatter Volley 3, Beta 2, Hold Together 1, and Pilot Team 1. Yeah. Well, Zero, didn't you see the post? I was exposed on a certain subreddit for kicking MJ Bird from the DPS channels in exchange for a ship. Oh man, that subreddit was great to read. Let's go do some stuff with this. Oh, and off-wise, 3 technicians. The Emergency Con hologram, which if you don't have it, you can get it this weekend with the Phoenix event. Crit Severity Doff, and then Agent Rule, which is from the Delta $150 pack thingy. Yeah, it's a pay-to-win Doff. Let's go in somewhere fun. That's not ISA. Because I legitimately don't really care about ISA anymore. ISA is a terrible map at the high end for parsing, due to it being all about burst damage, and yeah. HSC is where all the real high-end parsing's at nowadays anyways. Yeah, MJ's trying to complain. Porch sent me an email he got from MJ too. It was quite funny. MJ was linked to that and saw that I kicked him out over that and was just very unpleased. I feel like I'm lagging a little. I'm missing stuff off my tray. Turn the game sound down a bit. It's giving me like lower FPS. What's going on? The game complains of it like after I log in and out of too many characters. It doesn't like me anymore. I think, yeah, what a surprise. There's some like fleet pre-made in here. Terrible. It's just a standard like scatter volley escort build. It's nothing special, it's all for the fun. I should try this in HSC at some point, but it's not exactly many people running HSC right now. It's not people really doing much of anything. Now that the Omega event's over. They added anything to this calendar yet? Nope. Watch them put out a promo ship on Thursday. Like a new promo pack. I'm betting they will, because they do it around March of each year. There's an R&D pack there, so probably an R&D promotional event. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah, these scatter volley builds, you're not going to do the most DPS, but you're having a bit of fun. And you are killing stuff pretty fast if they're built properly. This one's screwing around. The consoles are certainly very suboptimal because, like, this gateway trap and the neurophasic disruption field, they suck. I could do a low buy sale also. Yeah, Phoenix is up now, so they want you to burn your dill. And then next week they'll have a promotional pack come out, and it'll last for the entire month, where they'll probably do like another Infinity rerun, if I had to guess. Well, what can we go do now? Let's see what else can we queue for. That's another CCA for them easy marks. I went through and opened 300 of the Phoenix packs earlier. Burned most of my dough. I haven't really been doing contraband because I've just been too lazy and I haven't really been playing this game. So that's the reason for lack of videos, that and being busy in real life. There's also just nothing to talk about in STO. When I do the STO videos, I want to, have something, relevant to talk about or explain. And when I'm going in and it's a dead time in the game, it's just, I'm not having fun making the video and not having fun playing the game because there's no one on. Yeah, game chat's pretty dead. I got one ultra rare out of the 300 or so boxes I opened. It was pretty disappointing. Need to get more salvage on this character. That was just the ultra rare. That wasn't even the epic. I have never gotten an epic now the Phoenix pack. That's one thing that has always saddened me. It's just never. Terrible. So what I've been doing to get my salvage is I've just been buying up Mark 12 purple stuff. It'll be like 50, 60k. I was buying a bunch of this at like 100k per item, and back when it was 100k per item, or the way I was doing it last week, I was getting about 5k salvage per million EC. So all these different categories, and I know people aren't checking all these. Like, I know even like the first week of this, just going through and finding the ground weapons that can be salvaged, I remember paying 10 to 20k for some of these things. They're still 40k, that's still pretty good. Because that gives 400 to 500 and something salvage. Yeah, Argala Elite, you could have done the crafting the Mark IIs. There's just many different ways you could have went about it. I went the lazy way. I tossed EC at it. Especially, I know people didn't look through the warp cores. There was a bit there. The mines. Everyone focused on like one category weapons. Oh, oh. $915 salvage for 100k. That's nice. So if items drop down to keep dropping, then you get stuff at 50k per Mark 12. That's 9 to 10,000 salvage per million EC. And this rate keeps getting better. Well, anyone got any questions or want to see anything else? If not, I'm probably going to close STO and go play something like PUBG with some people. I need to find out if these wing cannons and these quad cannons would be better without the Cridex. Tenor gets a lot of things zero. Like I had someone go and comment on one of my videos earlier. They went and they opened 100 lock boxes and didn't get anything. Then they opened 10 after someone else won an item and they got something. You know, getting a ship right after someone else, you know, opening right after someone else wins something like an epic token or a ship really does something for your chances. What do you do with the salvage? So, Eon, you just go to an item. Well, I guess I could have left it on. Oh, no, I can't. You go to an item and you hit re-engineer it, and you can change the modifiers. That's what you use the salvage for. So if I want to change this weapon over to crit D3 pen with a crit D damage, well, I don't have the deal for it, but I can just change, you know, the modifiers. Yeah, Zero, what I'm just saying there is that's the key. You just gotta find out the ways to open the lockboxes, which I made a video about in the past, which some people followed, some people ignored. On ways that seem to increase your chances of getting a ship, like opening right after someone else. That's just great. Yeah, I opened most of my lockboxes from Bridge. Just because the decor bridge is easy and convenient on most of my characters. A lot of my characters are stationed right at a contraband turning guy, so just leave them there, and then when I want to use the exchange bank, whatever, just beam them up to a Decora. Yeah. Just give me a minute here, Eon. I mean, people have done that before. There's been plenty of attempts at carrier builds. I mean, people have even done carrier builds for like pet only HSCs, like Ryan and them did some stuff like that when they were back and playing. I don't have a promo ship for you, Zero. I have enough resources right now to get me one promo ship easily. Outside of that, I haven't been playing this game. I haven't played the market in the last year. I don't have the resources I once had. You could say I gambled it away. Eon, are you in game right now? Well, that's not the worst Endeavor package ever. Eon, what's your character name? I cleared out my friends list a while back, so I might not have you on here. Can you message me something? Just like send me a PM. Wow, there's a few KDF in Karat. Guess I can go shoot a few of them for a few. I would say for your case, you want to get something set up for the Anrax. Take a look at like Eli's build. I'll get the link for you. Like, take a look at something like that. With those exotic builds, they may be on a side, but you got to remember that when it comes to DPS, that even a tactical player is going to do the science stuff better than a science player. Tacticals, because of all their all damage buffs, are just, when it comes to damage, nothing beats them with any build type. You believe random Reddit posters, Omega? I bet you do. I like how he called you Mr. Bajor. You're not accepting invites. So go to your privacy settings and change that, Nima. Oh. You're just ignoring everyone. Terrible. Oh no. No! Wrong setup. You're ignoring me. See if you're, you got me on, or, yeah. See if I'm on your ignore list. A dead fleet in STO? What? Impossible. There are no dead fleets. Leon, if you can hear me, I think I'm on your actual ignore list. There we go. Swap over to PvP and try to farm some KDF. You know, look, even if you get in one of the large fleets nowadays, I mean, like, we had people join TBC, you know, we've got, depending on the time of the day, we can have 9, 10, so I think we've seen 20 people on, you know, within the last 2 weeks at the same time, and even then, I mean, what? There's nothing to do with other people. No one's running the PvE queues. So few are doing PvP. Yeah, Omega, I'm gonna do some PvP in Karat. Join me. If you go on your KDF, I'll swap to my KDF and farm feds with you. Where Where's cold-hearted? Wow, Mega. Gonna be like that to me. I'm gonna go to Karat and be farmed. There's a lot of fleets, but they're not gonna close any of them because they've tried to encourage people to close them by systems like the Armada system, this new fleet holding the colony one. You know, that colony holding was designed to filter out the fleets, to make the dead ones, the ones that only have a few people, filter into the few remaining active ones. Yeah, there's a bunch of KDFs last I saw. It's mostly KDF. Watch me fail as I enter my stop for slow command into the chat box instead of here. Wow, you're so hateful, Omega. I feel like my FPS is just not actually 60. Saw flashes of red over here. Yeah, there's a delay on the stream, but like I'm feeling a lag in game. My game's probably been open too long. There's no KDF that I'm seeing here, Omega. Search box says there's some, but when I actually look, I don't see them. Unless they're really high up. Yeah, Karat can get pretty crazy active over the weekend. There's that meme running around, you know, that PvP's dead, but especially during the Omega event, during, you know, the entire anniversary event, there were a few weekends where Karat had 2 or 3 full instances. There was a lot of KDF first fed fighting going on. It was quite amazing. Yeah, I'm going up Omega. I'm not seeing anyone. The, yeah, it'd be interesting to fight some console PvPers. But I'm not a fan. You know, it's not nothing against consoles. I just hate the UI on consoles. The limitations that the console players face due to the UI is... it's terrible to even think about playing under. Like, you can't see your buffs on the opponent. Like, I had someone telling me they aren't even using size on console or something. I don't know if that's real, but if they're not using size, that is crazy. They were saying engineers are viable on console, which engineers on PC, you're going to be laughed at if you go into PvP, because even engineer tanks and healers can get faked. There's just so much raw damage potential nowadays. You can knock anyone down to 0 and trigger their all continuity, whatever, before they can react. Yeah, feds are not the current PvP meta. Like, if you don't have a cloak and you're on attack, you're done. Now, if you're a fed Psi, you're perfectly fine. Just tells me that's a command and then does it. Where's the show FPS? Well, thank you. It says show FPS 0. As a Fed Sci, you have some pretty good options ship-wise if you're actually in a Sci ship. Really popular ones right now are, what is it? The Scryer, the Wells, the Anorax. Doesn't matter what faction you're on, really, for most of the Sci ships, but yeah, there is enough survivability, and if you do things right with the Sci ship, you can sometimes take a little bit of the beating if you're cross healing with other Scis. If you're alone as a Sci, you're gonna be farmed. Unless the people you're facing are bad, or just don't have the raw damage. Yeah, this is a little... Oh, there they all are. Omega, get in here. Oh no, I thought that was MJ. Yeah, on PC, engineers are a joke. They slowed me down with something. I might have to restart my game with this lag. It's like FPS lag. Ooh. Yeah, if they're not bursting out an engineer on PC console, then they just don't have any raw damage potential. Like, there was one really, really tanky engineer I remember. It was some KDF engineer that Omega and I were going up against for a tank test last week. Maybe a week before. And if we had a proper vape down on the guy, like, I took him out just by myself a few times, and if he did pop off his heels, Omega and I going at him, we could take him down with just the two of us. You know, on one hand, you know, that would balance things out. On the other, that would take away from the fun that is STO PvP. You know, this level of customization, bringing in your own build, it adds a layer. It's just, there is an unbalance because there's a lot of things that I would consider PvP a pay-to-win part of the game. if you've missed out on certain traits or things, you have missed out heavily. Like, we got this cold-hearted trait with the winter event ship this year, and if people that miss that are seriously missing out, because that is such a potent trait. Go for Chancellor of 7. Poor Omega. Right now it's unbalanced numbers wise. Like, if you had a person on console science, they'd go in and waste their nuke on a target. That's just crazy. Because they can't see the buffs on a target. It's like with the, what you're saying about the tanks. That just wouldn't be a thing on PC because our size nuke all their buffs off. They canceled that plan because sub-nuke as a bridge officer ability would have been too overpowered for PvP. Yeah, if you don't have a battle cloak right now, it's pretty rough. If you have a bunch of fed size in here and they're cross-healing. Cross-healing, though, they have to be cross-healing, then it can be fine, which you can pin a person up and keybind a button to hit them with your heals. You can't do that on console. That's I would love to see a PC team fight a console team, but I don't think it'd be good to lose the UI elements. And it'd be unfair for the console players, being they're not used to those console elements, or the UI elements, if they came to PC to fight. Yeah, they could do both. But right now, PvP, if you're in a situation like this, it's their side is waiting for us to decloak and then they'll hit. Our side is waiting for them to decloak and then we'll hit. I was in a fight about 2 to 3 weeks ago. It was a TBC pre-made versus Cadet. And it was a 4v4. We had 3 size and 1 tack, and they had 3 size and 1 tack also, but they had one of their size as a vapor. And that was a match that was 100 minutes long because 2 of their team was cloaked, waiting for me to decloak as the only person on my team doing damage. One of their size was set up as a vape build, so they were doing damage. And the other 2 size on their team were just doing control, and the 3 size on my team were doing control/healing. So you have all the people that are out of cloak being a bit tanky and able to cross heal to prevent one from being vaped, especially when there's just the one vapor. And you have the other side just waiting for me as the vapor for my team to decloak so that they'll go and hit me. It was a very painful fight. When I talk about like the thing with the size and subnukes, you see on PC you can click anyone and see what buffs they have up. So you can, as a science player, correctly use your subnuke because you can see exactly when like there's all triggers, what buffs they have up. You can see that and nuke their stuff off. That's why for like a proper team you need at least 2 size, but right now we see 3 size in almost all cases on a proper team. 3 size and then 2 tacks. That is the PC meta. There's only one group even doing like a full pre-made on PC right now, and that's Evil Grandpas. I don't think anyone is really trying to even get something close to what they've got set up right now because they have a lot of good teamwork. There's now 6 KDF in here. Gonna PM Joe, tell him to get KDF moving. Oh. What's this? Oh, he's cloaking. There's also a new meta for KDFs right now that's pretty crazy. It's actually a budget PvP thing. I'm thinking about doing a video on it. I just have to get the resources for it on my KDF, which means getting some rep marks and stuff and some items I need. But there's this Torp vape build that is extremely powerful, and it's actually pretty cheap, that KDF can do with the Bird of Prey, the core one, using that Quantum Warhead module. MT started doing it from Sad Pandas, and a bunch of people have been copying it, and it's super, super effective. Odin Knight would be proud if he were here. Oh, KDF are up there. KDF, we're up here. My bad. Omega's being very nice to them. It's for that specific build. It's because the Quantum Warhead module, the one that comes on the Defiant and the Core, you buff that up and people are getting hits on others when they're, what is it, like, what were the numbers? I could think I saw that people were being hit for like 150k, and because of all the debuffs we get with like Cold Hearted and all that, aren't your armor pens reading, that just, it's very potent. Like, it's one of those things where they're buffing it up so much that they can take down, like, a tank. Oh, wow. But what I was saying was that that console can pretty much take out like a fully buffed tank player because there's so many debuffs you can stack with it, with Cold Hearted and stuff. It's like on PC, there are no cruisers in any serious team. There's not even really many healers other than Psys. Your Psys are doing multi-role, they're doing control, a lot of times they're doing target calling. You know, they're locking down the targets, debuffing, they're healing your team. They are not going to balance PvP. Their PvP season 13, was not for PvP, it was for the PvP competitive queues. And it depends on the time of the day. Like, during some hours of the day here on PC, we'll get a queue to pop. Others, yeah, you're going to be waiting hours. Yes, if you don't have Invincible or Continuity, you're pretty much done for. And Continuity is not going to do what Invincible does. Yeah. You know, I started out with PvP flying cruisers. You know, I was on my Psy on a cruiser. There's videos of it from years ago on my channel. But you just can't do stuff like that nowadays. I mean, that's... You're basically throwing at that point. You take a cruiser into a serious PvP. I personally prefer the dogfighter style, but even with that, you can't really do like a dogfighter with the bug ship even anymore. Like the build I did last year, it just gets killed too fast. You get dropped to 0 and you can't hide. There's just too much offensive damage potential now. Your resistance will just get wrecked by the pen skill the person has, the Cold Hearted trait as I mentioned several times. Because Cold Hearted, this thing will instantly apply basically after 5 shots hit the target. They're going to knock down 50 all damage resistance rating, and they're going to slow down the target, and they're going to knock down their power levels. It's going to do all of that to the target within like a second of me hitting them. And as you just saw with that engagement before, where I was shooting all the other KDFs along with Omega and the 2 other feds there, like we were just tearing through them. You can't get enough resistance to survive this stuff. There's 7 hobos here now. I would not use the T5 bug in PvP, but I mean, you can take it into PvE if you want. I'm surprised we haven't seen the revival of the old snooper builds. I remember back in the day when the big Karat wars were going on. before Delta Rising, where you'd have people come in with like the Nebula class in that console and, you know, scan around and everything. That was funny. Those were the really good days of the PvP in this game. They changed Cold Hearted the first week it came out because it would do 5 stacks per person. So if you had 5 people running it, you could have 25 stacks on a target, but they stopped doing that. So it's got a max of 5 stacks. Yeah, this is lame because everyone's cloaked. I'm gonna decloak. Oh, we might actually get a PvP pop. And someone mentioned that Sheller. Yeah, that Sheller is nice. The Colony Warp Cores do not beat the Spire Cores, because the EPS and the weapon power cost reduction still beats out the little bit of extra power you'd get. And, you know, like, the power levels, they don't matter too much to have them all over 75. Like, Amp isn't what it was before. Amp is just a Cat 1 buff now, so Amp isn't really a must. You don't have to worry about getting all your subsystems maxed over 75. Fall Beamboat. Oh yeah, if you can't really do Fall in PvP now. Wow, I'm not paying attention, and Omega's got all the action up near him again. Unless that was Borg. No, it was Borg. You can do that. I haven't messed with the Bajoran core much, but it seems to be pretty decent. But like, I'm not even running a Leech or Supremacy or any of that on my Scimitar anymore. What is that? Oh. It's like, what? What's that noise? I've not heard that before. It aligns shield or frequencies or something. All the KDF are cloaked. All 7 of them. Oh, whoa, oh. One's buffed up. Gotta love going 150 kilometers in a few seconds. I would say for power recharge rate, if you can get like around 300, you're fine. Well, that depends. Do you want the timeline stabilizer or the rift console, the regenerative integrity field? Because neither of them, you're not going to be using the traits off either of them really anymore. Feedback pulse is too nerfed, and the well, the what is it? Lucari ship never had a good trait. If I were going for DPS and I wanted to get the console for the scimitar, I would get the Krenum Science Vessel for the timeline stabilizer. If I wanted survivability for a tank character for PvE or something, I would do the Kabali there for the not I said Lucari before, it's Kabali. I would do the Kabali for the Rift console. Oh, and that's pretty much cruisers and STO PvP. The thing is, if you use the scimitar, you want to be using the timeline for what it has. I can't even hit them. They die too fast. Oh, sturdy. This is a pug stomp. Cloak and burst fire is king in current PvP for a tactical. Ideally, you wanna hit and run. You wanna knock them to 0. If you can stay and survive and finish them off, go for it. If not, get out of there. That's why I'm running these survival consoles like Fluidic. If I've got Fluidic and I'm slowed down, I hit my obfuscation screen. That'll keep me safe for 20 seconds. So I can wait for cooldowns and I can hit Clean Getaway and the Impulse Burst. And when I hit those, that's where you just saw me run 150 kilometers in Karat before. These guys aren't saying a thing. There's not a thing they can do here. Yeah, I might be on Adrian. If I see people are back on by the time that's going on, I'll hop on, most likely. I'm in my PvP setup, so why not? But it also depends if people are on for PUBG and if I'm in a game at that point. Because after this stream, I'm going to be doing some PUBG with some friends. This is like clubbing a baby seal right now. Well, it depends. I prefer cannons right now because I've been using beams for the last few years, and cannon rapid fire is really fun to use in PvE. I've talked about that on some previous streams and stuff. If you're doing elites, anything outside of ISA, cannons are pretty much going to be king. Um, Beams are really good in ISA because of the AoE potential they have. Not even going to decloak here. Yeah. But I like cannons with the scatter volley, or the rapid fire. Scatter volley works though all. Poor excellency. Yeah, that poor gem carrier. We decloak on him and he's dead. Omega. Oh, fail. And his buddy's coming in. Immune. I mean, seriously, PvP's like this. It's like you're going around clubbing baby seals or something. It's terrible. Yeah, that is the difference between rapid fire and scatter volley, but it's even more than 1.5 bill because if you want to get the NX and the Husnock. This guy thinks he can cap. One volley killed him. No. I would say the Voice of the Prophets will probably be better. But it's hard to say. Between the two, I think the Alliance Hyper Cannon might get more utility in a longer engagement due to it actually putting out procs, so you'll get disruptor procs on your target and stuff. This poor guy. He's an engineer. You want to see what happens to engineers. Oh, excellent. No, he's running. They're not even buffing up. They have accepted fate. This is terrible. We're halfway done. We need to cap some more. Omega. Yep, I'll see you around 0. The Miradorn is pretty good. You just keep your highest speed. You gotta use like um, Intel team, and what is it? Attack pattern lambda. Lose him. Oh, the pug got the kill. Yeah, PvP is not noob friendly or something like. Even if you're new to PvP, so noob to PvP, like you're not gonna have a good time. I've had characters where I try some different playstyle and I'm thinking, oh, let's see how this goes. Look, I tried a cruiser last year. I've tried cruisers in the past. I tried cruisers, I tried again like a few months ago, and it's just not good. There's nothing you can do. Science is technically the best in PvP because subnuke. We see Psi Vapors popping up nowadays, where you have Psi set up as tax in a vape build, and they're subnuking the person's invincible, their Zol off as soon as it triggers, so they kill them right away. That's extremely potent. But other than that, you have the Psis that are doing the crowd control builds, the Anoraks, Wells, the Scryers also really popular, as I mentioned before. But tax are really locked into, at this point, you need to be in a very fast ship, which the Miradorn can still do somewhat well, but you're going to get killed if someone's targeting you. Any good Zen ones? Not really. Not for feds. I mean, you could try the original pilot ships, but it's really hard without a cloak. And you do have some Fed ships that have battle cloaks like the Defiant, but there's such a huge trade-off. For PvE, oh, well, yeah, there's plenty of ships that are good for PvE. The big thing is you want 5 forward weapons, 2 aft for an escort. So the pilot ships, the new ones even, are okay. Yeah, the Voth ships aren't really common. My favorite experimental weapon is the Sheller. It's off the Shuktian Escort, which is around 200 million EC. It is the best DPS experimental weapon. I remember also there's someone I was fighting in a queue about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I want to say might have been incorrect. I'm trying to remember. They were in a Voth ship and they were trying that immunity shield, but it only absorbs 100k damage, so it's gone in like 3 or 4 shots from a cannon boat. That was funny. They were not happy in zone chat. I think Omega's ready. He said no running. We'll just go with this. Oh, he wanted to see how this did in PvP. I would say my favorite right now is probably that Alliance Hyper Cannon. Yeah, I think from what I remember, it's right around the railgun. Might be a little bit better, but it'll actually get some procs to go off. Thank you, Mark. It's just a lot of grinding in the past. He's gonna kill me here. No. Sub-nuked. He's gonna wait for me. Oh, he's running the placate. Terrible. Oh. Terrible. Stupid size. We need to delete Subnuke from the game. I'm slowed down by that side grab too much. Terrible. Yeah, that's why, like, when I hear that size aren't, you know, the thing on console, that's what amazes me, is it's like, with how OP Subnuke is? What? It's just crazy to think, like, that's not even, like, a thing there. Because on PC, size with subnukes are extremely OP. Okay, I guess we're warping. Yes, it can fire that from Enhanced Battle Cloak. I'll make that trade, Omega. Just for you. Actually, I don't think you were running immunities. You're taking a pretty steep penalty. I mean, we go look at the DPS records, like, ignoring the nanny ones. So you've got, let's look at HSC instead of ISA. Because HSC stresses more on sustained DPS instead of burst. So top tack is me at 241, top size 155. And the first engineer is not even over 100k. Now, I think if we're looking at something like that, I would say that as an engineer, I want to say you're looking at it seriously, probably a 30 to 50% loss, depending on the scenario. You could definitely get over 100k in ISA. Because ISA is all about that burst. Yeah, when someone's got the EPRM up, it is very hard to take them out. Well, that's a good idea too. See where they're at on DPS mark. I missed it. That's how you want to play Omega? No. Lost all my buffs there. You just can't beat a Psy with Subnuke if they are set up even somewhat properly. Just go into a map, Goss, and like use all of your engineer abilities. Just even if it's a terrible DPS mark or ISA, just go in there and click as many abilities as you can, and all your engineer abilities, and see what it does. See if that changes stuff. Yeah. I was running a Foundry map I made for some testing, also Borg Infestation. The issue is that it can be a pain to survive in if you're not like Romulan in the Scimitar with the Valdor. Subnuke, no. Oh. I'm getting screwed over by too many Subnukes. I don't run a Borg Warfare Specialist anymore because I don't have room. Let's see. So if I look under Browse All on the Foundry, if it'll show up under this if you're fed. So Borg Infestation. Didn't mean to shoot him. Terrible. Omega's the singularity here is basically running this build on a science, so I can't get past that damn sub-nuke. It's gonna nuke me as soon as I come out of this. Yep. All my buffs there are gone. And fluidic misfired. I'm gonna pull out a cloak. As soon as my major buffs are up. Running a glass can. Can't get rid of that sub-nuke fast enough. We need to get them to remove sub-nukes completely from the game. That's what we need to do. Yeah, no problem. Hope you enjoy it, Goss. It's a fun queue, especially if you can get 5 people in it and run it on Elite. It is harder than Hive Space Elite. Oh. It's Fedge or KDF shooting time. And all the KDF disappeared. Guess I'll shoot board in the meantime. No one around. It's a bit laggy to anyone watching. I just don't feel like the FPS is normal. Almost out of batteries. Bachlots, or as we commonly refer to him as Talklots, is floating around here somewhere. He isn't saying anything though. It's not like him. And the fun part of STO, waiting. This does not feel like 60 FPS. I feel this is lying to me. I guess the KDF have all run away. There's still 4 of them in here, though. Supposedly. I need to get out of there. They got side back up. Oh, terrible. You want to fix PvP? Get rid of sub-nukes. That'll go over well. Look before I could get there. Let's waste an alpha. Much focus. Go to ship set. So like the Solanae or Bajoran Deflector, because they can get a bunch of EPG on them. You can have 50 EPG. Then the Temporal Reputation 2 or 3 piece. You can do the competitive engines if you want, or you can do that 3 piece. But the Temporal 2 piece is a must. There's too many sighs. Give it till 30 after, and then I'm gonna cut the stream off. I'm gonna restart my game. Let's go for Chancellor. I'm being focused. It's terrible. Also, the way that if you want to look afterwards, this will go up as a video. It'll probably take YouTube a few hours to render it, but if you want to look like in the morning or something, it'll probably be up. If you want to watch that entire EPG section. Okay, well, I'm going to cut the stream off, so thank you everyone for watching. See you all around.